right out of a comic book.
What I really didn't like about Enter the Dragon was that I didn't really get a chance to do my thing.
How many times have you watched Enter the Dragon? 5 times, 10 times, or enough to memorize every kick Bruce Lee throws? Enter the Dragon isn't just a movie. It is a global cultural icon. It put Asian martial arts on the Hollywood map, redefined the standards of action cinema, and opened a new era where black heroes finally stood shoulder to shoulder with others on the big screen. But even if you are a hardcore Enter the Dragon fan, you only know half of the story behind the scenes. Behind that 1973 masterpiece are dark secrets the cast kept silent for 5 decades. No one dared to speak. No one dared to mention them. Until now. An Asian actor forced to fight against Hollywood prejudice. A black martial artist furious for being constantly undervalued. Actresses pressured to sacrifice their dignity just for a chance to appear on screen. And today, they will reveal the truth. A truth that 99% of fans never knew existed. 1973, Hong Kong. The harbor fog hadn't even lifted before Hollywood's lights arrived. 2 of the biggest cinematic powers of the era, American commercial film and Eastern martial arts, suddenly collided in one project, Enter the Dragon. The story follows Lee, a martial arts master sent undercover to a criminal lord's island, disguised as a competitor in an international tournament. His 2 unlikely allies, roper John Saxon, a white American gambler desperate to escape his debts, and Williams' Jim Kelly, a black fighter with a rebellious heart in the era of Black Power. 3 lives, 3 skin colors thrown into one deadly trap. On the island, there is only one rule: fight or die. Enter the Dragon was filmed with real sweat, real blood, and real fear. The film didn't just bring legendary fight scenes to the big screen. It turned martial arts into pop culture, making the world seriously recognize Eastern martial arts as a language of dignity and identity for the first time. Not only that, Enter the Dragon opened a historic door when a black actor was placed on equal footing with the lead hero, throwing away the servant and villain roles Hollywood once forced upon them. For the first time on the world stage, 3 races shared the central spotlight: Asian, black, white. A silent but powerful declaration. No one is born to stand behind. No skin color should ever be a reason to be looked down on. With a budget of less than $1 million, Enter the Dragon shocked the world by earning more than $400 million, 400 times its cost. It became one of the most profitable action films in cinema history. And after more than 50 years, it is still not only being re-watched, but honored as a legend of modern cinema. Yet, that success wasn't as glamorous as the theater lights. There were stories no one dared to tell: fear, pain, internal conflict. And the price paid for Enter the Dragon to survive as it does today. And to begin, we start with the name at the center of it all: Bruce Lee, the pioneer who carried the weight of race. Before stepping onto the set of Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee had already survived a brutal elimination right in Hollywood. In the late 1960s, he pitched a TV series called The Warrior about a Shaolin monk wandering the American West. The idea was stolen. Hollywood turned it into the series Kung Fu, but gave the lead role to David Carradine, a white man made up to look like an Asian martial artist. Bruce quietly packed his bags and left America in disappointment. Back in Hong Kong, he refused to fade away. He teamed up with Raymond Chow in Golden Harvest, then delivered a triple strike: The Big Boss, 1971, Fist of Fury, 1972, Way of the Dragon. 1972, directed by Bruce himself, facing off against legend Chuck Norris in the Coliseum. Asia exploded. Box offices emptied. Bruce Lee became the most talked about man in Asia. That roar reached Warner Brothers, especially producer Fred Weintraub. Hollywood flinched. Looks like we picked the wrong guy. Warner Bros. Quickly reached out, offering Bruce the lead in a US-Hong Kong action co-production, Enter the Dragon. But the truth is, they agreed not out of respect, but because filming in Hong Kong was far cheaper than in Hollywood. Bruce knew that, and it only made him refuse to fail. Bruce demanded terms never seen before in American cinema. He must be the star. Martial arts philosophy must stay authentic, not turned into cheap entertainment. Fight scenes must be real, reflecting the true spirit of Eastern martial arts. He would choreograph and control all the fights. And the film must not disrespect Asian culture. Hollywood had never allowed an Asian actor that much power. But this time, they had no other choice. Bruce was the only one they needed. Enter the Dragon began filming in Hong Kong in early 1973. Bruce stepped onto the set like a general entering battle. He slept only a few hours a night, trained at hellish intensity. He personally choreographed every strike, oversaw every camera angle. His eyes always sharp, always tense as a drawn bowstring, because he understood one thing: one mistake, and Hollywood would turn its back instantly. During a training session with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bruce spoke the truth he carried every single day. "If I succeed, Asians will have a chance." He wasn't fighting for himself. He was fighting for millions who looked like him but were never seen for who they were. The pressure overloaded Bruce's mind. His body began sounding alarms: insomnia, convulsions, headaches so sharp the world went dark. Bruce hid it all. If the crew found out, they would take everything away, and the only door for Asians would slam shut forever. Bob Wall, his co-star and on-screen rival, said Bruce carried the pressure of an entire race on his shoulders. If he failed, we would be shoved aside again, like always. On screen, he was fighting the villain Han. In real life, he was fighting a system built on racial bias, battling for the voice of Asians on the global stage. Enter the Dragon was Bruce Lee's final gamble. If he won, history would change. If he lost, Bruce Lee would be erased from Hollywood like he never existed. And the tragedy is, just as the film neared completion, Bruce's body had already begun counting his final days. The first collapse happened. On May 10, 1973, inside an editing room at Golden Harvest, Bruce suddenly suffered a violent headache, his vision blurred, and he collapsed among unfinished reels of film. He convulsed, unconscious, rushed to Baptist Hospital. Diagnosis: acute cerebral edema. His body was warning stop or die. But Bruce Lee couldn't stop. He refused hospitalization, refused to rest. Just days later, he returned to set as if nothing had happened. Colleagues were terrified, but Bruce only smiled. "If I stop, everything disappears." Bruce spent nights pacing like a caged beast, trapped by anxiety. Afraid the film would fail. Afraid failure would kill his people's dream. Afraid he wouldn't live long enough to see the film released. And then what no one dared to imagine came true. On July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee collapsed for the second time. This time, he didn't get back up. Official cause: cerebral edema, an allergic reaction to a medication containing aspirin and meprobamate, leading to death. He was only 32 years old. Enter the Dragon had yet to premiere worldwide, but the death of a legend triggered a storm of conspiracy theories. Some said Bruce was murdered by the Hong Kong triads because he refused to pay protection money while filming in their territory. Others claimed a family curse, divine punishment for breaking taboo. Many believed the traditional martial arts community silenced Bruce for exposing real fighting secrets to the world. There were even theories that Bruce Lee was poisoned by forces who couldn't allow an Asian man to stand equal with American stars. No one knows the absolute truth. But one thing can't be denied. The film meant to begin a new era for Bruce Lee. Instead, became his final message to the world. The cast was devastated, realizing the truth. Bruce Lee had fought to his last breath, not for himself, but for those who would come after him. Even in death, he won the greatest battle of his life. Enter the Dragon premiered and shattered the prejudice that once held him back. Bruce Lee left this world, but the door he opened will never close again. While Bruce Lee represented the pride of Asian identity, Enter the Dragon also became a turning point for black representation on screen. And at the center of that uprising was Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly, the 48-hour role switch, and the rise of Black Power. You may not know this, but Jim Kelly almost never appeared in the history of Enter the Dragon. The role of Williams had originally been signed to Rockne Tarkington, but just 48 hours before filming, Tarkington suddenly dropped out over a contract dispute. The production was thrown into chaos. Warner Bros. Panicked. A multicultural film without a black fighter would break its entire mission, and producer Fred Weintraub had to rush out to find a black martial artist with both skill and soul. At that moment, he heard rumors about a black fighter in Crenshaw who kicks like lightning. He walked into Jim Kelly's dojo in Los Angeles, and destiny struck. A black man with a blazing afro fire in his eyes and kicks that looked like they could tilt the Earth's axis. Kelly wasn't an actor. Kelly was a real fighter. Weintraub stood frozen. He blurted out, "My God, he looks like he walked straight out of a comic book." Weintraub didn't hesitate for a second. you're coming to Hong Kong with us." Jim Kelly recalled that moment. "I never dreamed of Hollywood. I only carried my gloves and the pride of a black man." 1 week later, Jim Kelly received a round-trip ticket from Los Angeles to Hong Kong. On it, only a few words: "Warner Bros. Enter the Dragon." Kelly had no idea he was walking into the biggest chapter of his life. But Hong Kong did not roll out a red carpet for Kelly. The moment he stepped onto set, Kelly realized he was the only black man in the entire production. And in the film industry at that time, that almost always meant the lowest position. On his first day, a few crew members whispered, "How is a black guy supposed to fight?" Kelly answered with a cold grin, then punched the stereotype in every scene he performed. Kelly wasn't afraid. He walked straight, head held high. Bruce Lee saw that the very first moment they met. They trained together, exchanged punches and philosophies. Bruce called him Brother Jim, the greatest badge of honor Kelly ever received. A crew member recalled, "Whenever Bruce trained, the whole set stopped to watch. But when Kelly started warming up, even Bruce stopped." The Hong Kong stuntmen only knew Bruce was a legend. Jim Kelly. To them, he was just a stranger. Kelly had to fight real more than anyone else. And he delivered. Williams was originally written as a minor role, fly to Hong Kong, fight a few scenes, then get killed. But after just a few early scenes, director Robert Clouse saw that Kelly wasn't just an actor, he was a cultural flame. He increased Kelly's screen time, added dialogue, added action. On screen, Jim Kelly moved like a Harlem warrior, a man who had spent his whole life fighting a system determined to keep him down. His eyes said clearly, "I will not kneel." With just a few dozen minutes of screen time, Jim Kelly became a global icon of the blaxploitation and martial arts movements. For the first time in cinema history, a black man wasn't a villain, wasn't a servant, but a hero standing shoulder to shoulder with Bruce Lee and John Saxon. Black audiences saw a stronger version of themselves. They shouted, "That's our man!" Jet magazine put him on the cover, the new face of black power on the big screen. Hong Kong treated Kelly like a true rock star. He was handsome, famous, magnetic, and his presence turned every party into an explosion. But living like a rock star came with consequences. Kelly once shared a behind-the-scenes story, both funny and embarrassing. He ended up hospitalized because of romantic overexertion in Hong Kong. The injury was so sensitive that when filming the torture scene of Williams, the crew had to design a special net to support his body weight and avoid more pain. The team joked, "Jim Kelly is living like a real rock star." Warner Bros. Smelled gold. They signed Kelly for a 3-picture deal. Black Belt Jones, 1974, erupted. 3 the Hard Way turned him into a living legend. Hot Potato didn't crush the box office, but it solidified the image of a black warrior America had never seen before. But that glory came with shadows. While Warner Bros. Counted hundreds of millions, Kelly was counting bills. What he earned was barely enough for a small house and an old car. His contract was a scale contract, the lowest level for a B-list actor. No percentage of revenue, no international rights, no residuals. To Hollywood, that was fair. But Kelly understood. It was fairness only if you were white. Then, Bruce Lee died right before the film's release, and Warner Bros. Suddenly realized the only surviving hero who could promote this movie was Jim Kelly. But instead of treating him like the next torchbearer, they treated him like a shadow riding Bruce Lee's legacy. The media pinned a fake badge on him, the Black Bruce Lee. A label that sounded like praise, but was a collar of prejudice. Kelly was always placed under Bruce's giant shadow. Every time the cameras rolled, every time audiences cheered, the media seemed to see only the copy, not the man standing there. To Kelly, that wasn't a compliment. He respected Bruce, his big brother on set, but he didn't want to live under anyone's shadow. In an interview, he said clearly, "I don't want to be the Black Bruce Lee. I want to be Jim Kelly." That sentence spread like a manifesto across Hollywood. Black talent deserves to be seen for who they are, not as someone's version. Yet Bruce's shadow remained heavy. Kelly once admitted that what he disliked most about Enter the Dragon was, "What I didn't like about Enter the Dragon was I didn't get a chance to do my thing. It was Bruce Lee's film. And that was the greatest pressure, the applause, the lights, the victories were all there. But not fully for him." Bruce Lee's shadow wasn't just on the poster. If Bruce Lee fought for Asians and Jim Kelly fought for black people, then John Saxon was fighting something few ever think about: the fear of a white actor being thrown into an Asian martial arts world, where he was no longer the center. John Saxon, a white American lost in the world of Eastern martial arts. Before Enter the Dragon, Saxon was already known for his roles in film noir, and as the classic American leading man. He had worked with Marlon Brando, walked through Hollywood's glamorous parties. In that world, someone like Saxon was always the standard of a leading man. But the moment he stepped into Hong Kong, every standard became meaningless. Here, the hero was Bruce Lee. The magnetic force was Jim Kelly, and him a white American, on the wrong turf. Saxon admitted that the first time he saw Bruce and Kelly training together in the dojo, he almost wanted to walk right back out. Bruce was so fast that Saxon could only see the blur of his fists. Kelly's kicks were so high, Saxon thought they were filming in fast motion. That was the moment he understood here to survive, he'd have to start from scratch. He threw himself into crash course karate training, only for Bruce to correct him during a fight scene. No, don't act karate. Fight right. It was a martial arts lesson and a lesson in humility. But Saxon didn't train just to keep up. He fought not to be overshadowed. Saxon pushed for more depth in Roper's character, a backstory involving gambling debts, and the mafia chasing him. He understood clearly that in this film without a story, he would disappear under the blazing aura of those two warriors of black and Asian pride. Most importantly, he stood up to protect Jim Kelly when the studio wanted to reduce Kelly's screen time after Bruce began stealing the spotlight too strongly. Saxon urged them, don't. He deserves to stand equal. That wasn't politeness. It was respect for skill and fairness. The biggest shock for Saxon was Hong Kong action filmmaking culture. No stunt cables, no protective pads, no fake hits, real blows, real bruises. There was a scene where Saxon had to fight with a staff against a stuntman. After the rhythm went off on the first take, Bruce walked up to Saxon, placed a hand on his shoulder, and said quietly, "Breathe. Focus. If you mess up again, you won't get hurt. The other guy will die." Saxon still retells that line today with a smile of admiration and fear. When Enter the Dragon exploded into a phenomenon, the press gave every headline to Bruce Lee and Jim Kelly, and Saxon a talented supporting actor. It sounded friendly, but it left a small cut in Saxon's heart. For the first time in his life, he understood what it felt like not to be the chosen one. Yet, that feeling gave Roper a deeper soul, a white American pulled into a different world fighting to prove he wasn't just the leftover piece. History looks back now. Without Saxon, Enter the Dragon's power triangle would lose a crucial corner. He was the bridge that allowed Western audiences to step into Bruce Lee's world. Because in this journey, every race had to fight, just each fighting in a different way. Alongside the central trio of Bruce Lee, Jim Kelly, John Saxon, Enter the Dragon also had a lineup of villains who made audiences shiver. But few knew that behind those chilling performances were men who were more intense, more dangerous, and more powerful than what they showed on screen. Villains in real life, even more dangerous than in the movie. Shi Keen, the crime lord who didn't need English to command the entire set. Shi Keen, who played Mr. Han, was already a legendary villain in Hong Kong cinema. The interesting part was he barely spoke English. He memorized every line phonetically and was dubbed later in post-production. But what terrified people wasn't his voice. It was his eyes, sharpened by a lifetime of playing the embodiment of evil. Bob Wall once said that if Shi Keen took just a few slow steps toward you, you immediately felt the pressure of a man who could control a room with silence alone. He didn't need to yell. He didn't need to rage. One stare was enough to make the audience feel that even the devil would fear him. Bolo Yeung, strength so real acting wasn't required. Bolo Yeung as Bolo was Hong Kong's top bodybuilder at the time, weighing nearly 140 kilograms of pure muscle. His biceps were bigger than many men's thighs. Bolo didn't study acting much. He simply moved the way a man would, if he could crush anyone standing in his way. Some scenes where Bolo was told to apply a little more pressure forced stuntmen to ask the director for replacements, because Bolo's strength was no joke. Few lines, but every time he clenched his muscles, audiences froze. Bob Wall, the man Bruce Lee trusted, enough to risk real danger. In the role of O'Hara, Bob Wall had to film many direct confrontations with Bruce Lee. No CGI, no trick shots. They agreed we hit real enough for the audience to believe. What Bob Wall respected most about Bruce was this: Bruce knew each man's limits and only allowed danger within what he could control. Wall famously said Bruce wasn't arrogant. He was just better than all of us. A movie of villains, but a psychological test for real people. Because of Hong Kong's shooting style, everything was rushed, minimal padding, maximum tension. All three villains had to stay mentally strong and protect themselves. There was no room for mistakes, no second chances if someone broke down under pressure. This created an atmosphere that was extremely real and suffocating during fight scenes. Audiences watched with tension. The film crew lived with it at 10 times the intensity. Under the camera lights, they became monsters. Behind the camera, they were just humans trying to survive a set that offered no mercy. But no matter where they came from, every person in this film, hero or villain, had to face one common enemy, a set without a safety net. The set was a battlefield for survival. In Hollywood, action movies always come with safety padding, breakaway glass, rubber weapons, and protection systems. In Hong Kong in 1973, none of that existed. If a scene needed a glass bottle, the crew grabbed a real one. Bob Wall, who played O'Hara, once recalled the iconic clash with Bruce Lee. One mistimed move, Bruce's hand smashed into real glass, and the medical team had to stitch 12 stitches right on the spot. Wall stayed silent. As Bruce clenched his fist, he showed no pain, only fear that the scene would be ruined. Then there was the Cobra scene. Someone asked the prop guy, "Is it venom-free?" He smiled, uncertainly. Kelly later said, "In Hong Kong, there was no concept of acting to look real. Everything was real. Many extras playing Han's thugs were actual members of Sun Yi. On a major Hong Kong triad at the time. No acting required. They knew real violence. They lived with real danger. And they did not like being disrespected. Some days the camera was rolling, but the tension off camera was far scarier than any scene being filmed. No one dared breathe until the director yelled cut, because on Enter the Dragon, not every scene could be shot twice. Under the intense lights of Enter the Dragon's set, the faces audiences barely noticed behind the stars were writing a different story, their own story. The stunt youth squad, silent warriors who changed their lives. Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, Yuen Hua, and Yuen Biao were just young unknowns when they appeared in Enter the Dragon. But they sharpened themselves through brutal filming conditions and later rose to become Hong Kong's action legends. Jackie Chan, just one of hundreds of extras and stunt performers, appeared in Enter the Dragon as a nameless villain's thug behind Bruce Lee. A behind-the-scenes record shows Bruce Lee accidentally struck Jackie with a stick in a scene. The injury was real, but Bruce immediately rushed to comfort him. Jackie learned right away that on this set, real hits wasn't a phrase, it was the rule. Sammo Hung and Yuen Biao were also there not just as background fighters, but as soldiers in training, jumping, slipping, getting scraped up, fully immersed in real combat filmmaking. According to Screen Rant, Sammo Hung appears in the opening fight of the movie, and Yuen Biao worked as a stuntman, an early milestone for both. Yuen Hua, Bruce Lee's main stunt double, had to handle the toughest flips and jumps moves that later defined the legendary Seven Little Fortunes. All four didn't just join a movie. They bled for it. They crashed into wet floors, smashed through real glass, then got back up to shoot the same scene with open wounds. Bruce Lee said, "If a scene doesn't scare you, the audience won't feel the danger." And that spirit spread into every stuntman on set. Jackie Chan later admitted that the Enter the Dragon environment, breakneck pace, tons of takes, almost zero safety, taught him the ultimate lesson: you must fight real, so the audience believes you are living the scene, not acting it. Years later, Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, Yuen Hua, and Yuen Biao would rise from Bruce Lee's shadow to become major stars and masters of action cinema. But at the start on Enter the Dragon, it was all about painful sacrifice in silence. No spotlight, no press, only the grind, exhaustion, and relentless ambition. But while those young men changed their lives with sweat and painful falls elsewhere on set, some women were paying a far harsher price: their dignity and their right to be respected. The women of Enter the Dragon sacrificing dignity just to survive. For the women in Enter the Dragon, their place was never to be martial arts legends. They walked onto the set with eyes full of excitement and fear. Because beyond the lights, they had to fight stereotypes, silent negotiations, and the simple desire to be seen as actresses, giving everything they had. The supporting roles required them to appear as the girls on the island, creating an image of glamour, but also the darkness of the tournament. Unfortunately, no Hong Kong actresses at the time agreed to take those service scenes. It meant being looked down on, stigmatized, the woman who welcomes criminals. So the production decided to hire actual sex workers to fill the background. Many of them later said, "We knew we'd be judged, but we had no other way to reach the screen." One background actress remembered during filming, I felt like I was being looked at differently. No one asked, "Can you act?" They only asked, "Will you do it?" There was a case where a female stunt performer filmed a scene meant to be artistic, but when the crew said this needs to feel more real meaning, she had to lower herself beyond the script. She refused and was replaced the same day. Even so, their presence contributed something crucial. They built the visual world where male characters could fight for honor. But the women, were the foundation that made the film's shine and seduction feel real. When Enter the Dragon exploded and Dolby sound shook theaters everywhere, audiences rarely remembered that the spotlight only turned on because women were standing behind it silent, judged, so the movie could happen. And the hardest truth, many of them never got to look back at their role, never got to say proudly, "I was in Enter the Dragon," because they understood the public remembers heroes, rarely those behind them. Glorious success, but too many sacrifices. After its release, Enter the Dragon earned more than $400 million worldwide, a miracle, 400 times the budget, one of the most profitable films in cinema history. But while the movie triumphed in front of millions of viewers, the ones who made it faced very different endings. Bruce Lee died 6 days before the premiere. He never saw his own victory. Jim Kelly became a black icon, but Hollywood's racism still denied him the opportunities he deserved. John Saxon was undervalued next to his two co-stars, despite being the bridge between two cinematic worlds. The young stunt performers spent decades before anyone finally called them legends. Enter the Dragon declared to the world, "Heroes do not come in only one skin color. Talent is not defined by where you were born. Prejudice lasts only until someone shatters it." More than 50 years have passed, yet the punch of this film is still breaking through every cultural barrier. Which character in Enter the Dragon do you respect the most? If you enjoy discovering hidden truths behind cinematic masterpieces like this, hit like and subscribe so you never miss the next stories of the legends behind the lights.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore. Stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.